Just a quick note on the 325 meeting minutes under Shelburne subdivision. There's like an incomplete sentence. It says the Shelburnes had owned, I just am realizing this now, had owned the pro, and then it says discussion included. So I think we just either need to eliminate that sentence or
And
finish it.
Lucia, we also need to add Randy and Teresa Amidon to the members of the public. I'm pretty sure they were here.
That was done at all.
I want to go and see Joe.
He took everybody's name.
Oh, for the 2325?
No, they were here for the 325.
Got it. I mean, yes, go through that.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as just amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Do I have a
minutes
second?
as amended.
All in favor?
So moved. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the amendment to the Gosling, is that how you say that?
Yes.
4-lot subdivision.
So this is a subdivision that was approved in 2019 for 4 lots. Lots 2, 3, and 4 get their road frontage off of River Road. Lot 1 is that back lot. And so the request, well, let me back up a second. We said this at the last meeting, but I am obviously recusing myself from the board for this discussion, as I have a business relationship with the owner of all 4 lots, and it's the same owner. So the request that we're making is to remove the right-of-way, hammerhead located on lot 1. And so it is not on that map, but it's on this wastewater map. I'll pass these
Oh, it is on
along.
this one.
The hammerhead is,
Okay.
but what I'm going to reference is the lot 2's driveway. So you'll notice on this figure that I've just passed out, the driveway comes in off of River Road, very close to the driveway for lot 1. The proposal is that the new driveway for lot 2 and lot 3 would be shared in that right of way that's highlighted. Which means that the only people accessing lot 1, accessing the driveway where that hammerhead was, would be lot 1, which is to say the residents of lot 1 and the use of lot 1 in that driveway will stay exactly the same as they are right now.
And there is no hammerhead there.
There is no hammerhead, correct.
And there is no hammerhead because it hasn't been constructed yet.
Correct.
Okay.
It was a term in the original permit that the hammerhead would be required if there was further development on that road.
Okay, so that driveway.
Using that driveway, exactly.
And we're not going to do, we're going to do down here where the highlight is?
Yes, and we already have that as a right-of-way that was included in the original subdivision.
Can I see that from you?
Yes.
I see, yeah. And new access. And when's this from? 2019.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, I assume you looked at the
Yes.
okay, declarations and covenants and easements. It doesn't say that in here. It says the hammerhead shall be established as shown on the above referenced survey before any construction on lot 2, 3, or 4 commences and shall be maintained on a year-round basis.
Right, so there's never been construction on 2,
Okay.
3, or 4. They're currently vacant lots.
So will they stay vacant?
No, they would be developed at some point in time.
And then at that point, the hammerhead gets built on lot 1?
We're requesting that that clause be completely removed.
Why?
Because it won't be necessary if the driveway is
Because the
down
driveway
here.
for lot 2 is no longer going to go back
Okay.
all
Not
on
going
Wall
that way, it's
Street.
gonna
Got
be
it.
this way.
They're going to access on this lower portion.
Got it. So there's a very small portion of the driveway that is shared.
Yes, in the right of way.
Got it. About how many feet is that, Cheyenne?
Oh gosh, it's 150 for road frontage nearby on lot 3. I don't see it on the survey how long that would be.
Yeah.
175, I would guess.
Yeah, lot 4 has 148 feet, lot 3 has 150, and there's no measurement on lot 2 currently.
I believe there's, Stuart?
May I? I'm Stuart Coleman, President of the Winhall Fire Department. This was brought to my attention, we spoke about it in the office here. And the way it showed on the maps I saw there, it appeared that that was for a turnaround for fire equipment or emergency equipment. And then it was mentioned to move it from there down to River Road. Well, we don't want to move it onto River Road because we're not, if we have to turn around, we turn around either on Wall Street or Coleman Hills.
Okay.
But was that part of the obligation of the original permit that was done?
It appears to be,
Yeah.
unless Cheyenne knows different than I, but.
So when you and I spoke, Stuart, we had spoken about lot 2 gaining access off of River Road. We have, based on some of the commentary from members of the board, felt that that is not the best access, and using the right-of-way that comes off of Wall Street where there's no blind curve is a smarter way and a safer way to access the property. And on top of it, it works better with the topography there.
Right, because the difference between the road and the top of the bank is like 10 feet. I mean, it's more than I can reach from the road. I walked it a couple times, and so that a road coming in off from River Road is not, or driveway is not really very feasible on that corner.
Yeah, so I understand that we, dismissed it. It will come where it was before, off of Wall Street.
Okay,
And there will be, a shared drive for lots 2 and 3, am I correct?
Correct.
Do you
And,
wanna-
and you had just mentioned, Stuart, you said there's adequate space down here for a fire truck to turn around.
well, but as long as we don't get up into that development, if we turn up in there, we're told there's a situation in Wall Street, and we get up in there and then find out it's in a different place. It's a nasty road to drive, as you know. It's so narrow. I mean, I have to be careful with my pickup trucks, they don't got a fire truck.
We are not changing what's happening in the upper section of Wall Street.
Right.
That will stay as it is. We're not further subdividing, we're not using the access off of the upper portion of Wall Street. The only thing that's being changed is an addition on the lower section of Wall Street. So the traffic patterns beyond this are unchanged.
So was that, you call it Hammerhead, that was supposed to be built before anything else happened, or not?
No, that's, so, are you looking at the one that has the driveway for lot 2 on it? Do you wanna see this?
I don't.
Yeah, here.
Or here, this one's bigger.
Just a minute, it might be.
It's not on that
Let
one.
me
No,
get down.
This one.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'm gonna show that to him. So Stuart, on this map that Lucia's gonna hand you, you'll see there's a driveway
Right there.
on lot 2 that comes off of the existing driveway that's there today to access lot 1, which is the house that exists. That hammerhead was to be built pending that driveway, if I'm understanding correctly, that driveway coming off of the existing driveway that's there. But she's proposing to eliminate that driveway on lot 2, coming off of the existing driveway out for lot 1, and instead have access on the existing right-of-way that is on the corner of Wall Street and River Road.
That's a highlighted area down at the
Yeah,
bottom.
the yellow area that's highlighted. That's what she's,
So I'm
that's,
assuming that the reason this wants to be removed, because these people don't want this on number 1 property line.
Yeah.
But is this gonna change again when somebody buys lot number 2 and say, well, I don't want the driveway through here, I want it to go somewhere else? Because the problem is, if this was part of the proposed regulations for a subdivision, and it was supposed to be an area built here so that we could turn a truck around, if we keep moving it and taking it out of the system, it creates, in the future, hopefully we won't have to go up in there for fire at all. But if we do, then we get up on the wrong road because it's a narrow little road. We would have a situation.
What would be your preference, Chief of Police, Chief of Fire? Like, how would you, as somebody who needs to get a truck in there, out of there, and be able to turn it around, think it's a better way to do that? Like,
Well,
there's two
The
ideas.
problem is that the trees are way too close to the road, all along that road, not that we have any say over that.
Right.
But there are, I mean, I have actually gone in there with a bucket loader before to help Dean clean it up because it's gotten so narrow.
Right.
And the trees are literally a foot off the road, okay? But that's, you can't really tell them they have to cut the trees on the rest of it, but it's very narrow. I'm assuming this was put in as planning ahead for more traffic, and so now you're saying that this road up here to the fork, and then where it turns to the left and goes to lot number 1, is only going to serve lot number 1 now, it's not going to serve anything else.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
Correct.
So if you wanted a stipulation that the right-of-way access to lot 2 and lot 3 be off of the right-of-way so that there's no conversation in the future
Off
about
the right, off which right of way?
off this right-of-way down at the base of Wall Street and along River Road. It sounds like you want the assurance that the driveway won't move, which I think is a reasonable thing to ask. We would be amenable to the idea, the property owner, and I,
Because
to moving it down here.
It's easy to move it now before anybody buys it, but then when somebody wants to buy it, say, oh, wait a minute, I want my driveway to come up here and come in up on the house. You know, so if this is gonna keep changing, you know, how many times is it gonna change? I mean, because there is no real good way to come off of River Road because of the grades. It's a steep grade.
Not proposing
Right,
that.
so
Well,
yeah,
I know we're not proposing that, but that has been mentioned, and I mean, not that I have a lot to say about it. I've only been in the fire department 57 years, so I'm a newcomer.
how do you turn around at the end of Wall Street? Is there a cul-de-sac?
The only place we could do it is maybe down in Dean's driveway, or at the V up where it goes to Boyle's, or goes down to Dean's, or I'm sorry, Hannah's parents' house. But if there's, up in there a ways, there is a Y in the road, okay? And if conditions are good, we could turn around there. If it's in the middle of winter, middle of an ice storm, then we're in trouble.
I would like to add, that accessing lot 2 off Wall Street, you go up Wall Street, you take a left during a lot. It will keep traffic away from all the owners who live on Wall Street. There's one on the right, Gianotti's up there, who else is up there?
Boyle.
Boyle's up there.
Oh, no, I understand
Keep
that.
the traffic away.
Yeah, they won't be going in and out on the road nearly as much. Yeah, no, I understand that. You know, I mean, it's up to you guys. I just wanted to express my concern because it was never developed, it was never finished. The place, technically a cul-de-sac on a town road at least, is supposed to be 90 feet in diameter. Some of our cul-de-sacs we have now aren't that big. We have to live with what we got. Some of them we're trying to expand, some of them we're trying to get out of because they aren't hardly big enough to turn a town truck around, so they don't got a fire truck. But, you know, it's just, I thought we should at least bring it to your attention that it, you know, if it was on the original.
So my only question, or my point that I would say is, if it's stipulated to do it a way that actually works for the fire department, and somebody wants to buy that property, they can come back to us and say, I'd like to move the driveway, but it will be so stipulated that they can't do that.
Right.
It'll be stipulated. So what I'm just trying to really hammer down is, what's the best option so that you guys do have access with all the issues that you said as far as width and, you know, and where the road level is.
I had to make a new
Yeah,
road.
I want the safety for not just the people who live there, but for your fire department, if they ever were accessed up there. What would be the stipulation that we could put in place that would make the owner of lot 2 know that they can't change that lot? They can come in and say they want to, and we're gonna say it's so stipulated that you
Well, I
can't.
make it a condition of the permit
Right.
But as we amend the permit, it will be a stipulation in the subdivision permit. There is a permit that was issued in 2019, and what we will do is all the conditions will be right there.
But we're altering it in 2026 is what we're talking
Yeah.
about. We're moving it.
That's an
And if
amendment.
we move it, then we make it that it's amended to move, and we stipulate that it can't move again, or the only thing
Yeah, we
it could
can do
potentially
that.
do is move back to its original position, which is what we're trying to get a change on.
I think Beth.
Yeah, if
Yeah, we
it-
have somebody in the back
I
who wants.
think Beth has her hands up.
Go ahead, Beth.
So, my question, well, first, I just wanna comment that obviously, when Marcel did this survey, Marcel was a very thoughtful person. He went over everything. There's a reason why he put that hammerhead on the original lot, for the fire department to be able to turn around, and that is a main condition of this subdivision. So I think that's extremely important. Secondly, if you're gonna change the right of way, these lots all have wastewater permits. Where do they overlay in these new proposed areas that you're gonna alter? Because now you're going to have to, if you're going over any part of the wastewater area, or the well line or anything like that, you're gonna have to get new wastewater permits. The existing access permits that were received by Craig Goslin were never used, therefore those have actually expired, so those no longer exist. So there's multiple problems, but I have a little bit of a problem with changing a right-of-way that was or a subdivision that was asked for originally with these conditions, because in the road maintenance agreement, it specifically talks about that hammerhead over and over again, that it's extremely important for the emergency crews. And I think sometimes we just go ahead and alter things because it works for the person that's either selling or buying, and I think we should be concerned about that. And I did voice this to the owner, Mr. Goslin, when he came before me a couple weeks ago.
What was his response?
What was his response?
Yeah.
He said he would put one on the other lots, but that's not in part of this new proposal that I'm understanding.
So let's take a few steps back, Beth. With the hammerhead, I think the impetus, and having sat on the board for a few years now and gone through the process of subdividing, for the hammerhead was increased traffic on Wall Street and having another driveway off of the top, very close to where that new hammerhead is. I think it's reasonable that by moving that driveway and stipulating that it's in this right-of-way, which is originally noted on Marcel's subdivision and still noted on the subdivision that's been approved, that there is access granted for a driveway already off of this right-of-way. You know, unfortunately, we don't have Marcel's guidance anymore, but at one point in time, he deemed this to be an acceptable way to enter Lot 3, and therefore it stands to reason that you could enter Lot 2, which is the one who grants the right-of-way over it, and get a driveway off of that. You're completely right about us having to pay attention to the wastewater, and I have been very diligent about this. This is a copy of the wastewater map. It shows the well shields, it shows the septic lines, the tanks, the proposed house sites. The driveways would not in any way impact these. We've been thoughtful in this. I think we've gone to members of the town and really asked for feedback, which is why I have had the opportunity already to talk with both you and Stuart. I think we've done a good job in listening, and Hannah had a great idea of coming off of Wall Street versus coming off of River Road that really didn't have super safe access. You know, so we're trying to come up with a reasonable solution for everyone, and you know, we're gonna go into a different conversation once this wraps up, but part of it is about the environmental implications of this. We're talking about dramatically reducing the amount of impervious, and we all know how much of an issue flooding is, and there's a steep bank over there. If we take away that hammerhead, that's hundreds of feet of impervious surface that we're not putting up there. We're just going to be putting one road and two driveways off of that versus a giant swath of clear-cut land and gravel.
I assume Tammy's right. I'm asking, when you get done, I'd like to speak.
Are we done?
That's it.
Okay, go ahead, Stuart.
So, when I look at this map, up here where proposed lot 2, you go up and you go and they proposed it originally to come off from the road that went to lot 1. They have looks like a golf club there that looks like that was intended to be the road into the house. I'm assuming that square would be the proposed location of the house, is that
Not
correct?
any longer.
Well, I understand, I'm trying to rationalize here, I understand. Nothing is set in stone, and then when you say that you have an impervious surface, I doubt very seriously if they're gonna pave it. It would have been gravel, because
That's
none
it.
of Wall Street is paved, and I doubt very seriously if any of Wall Street is going to become paved.
The state of Vermont considers gravel road to be impervious now.
Gravel's impervious now?
Believe it or not.
By golly, I got some gravel that has water in it. Okay, so anyways, that was just, so they're saying that gravel doesn't count now. So, okay. But anyways, so I guess if it stays down here, but it's just if suddenly, when you sell lot 2, and then these people say, well, I want the driveway up here because it's a closer drive to my house than to go, let's see, how much is an inch on this map here?
You can use the frontage
That'll be 100 feet.
of 150 feet on lot
So-
3.
Okay, so it's probably 200 feet from the proposed driveway that's gonna service lot 2 and lot 3. So they're gonna have to build 200 feet of road to get near their house, whereas up here, they were gonna build 125 feet approximately. Just my,
Right, but we're talking about 12-foot driveway versus, and I am beyond doing this kind of math in my head, but whatever this hammerhead comes out to, which is clearly more than a 12-foot driveway at 250 feet.
Andrea?
I just have a quick comment about just the definition of impervious, and I agree that compacted gravel, like a road base to town standards, would be considered impervious. However, they do have specifications, like with geogrid companies, they make geogrids with like 1 or 2 inch size gravel that you can compact enough for a fire truck access, for example, that could withstand that load, but actually does infiltrate the stormwater runoff. So I just wanted to point out that there are products and cross sections that could allow infiltration of stormwater, if that needed to be an option. I know we've done that at like hospitals and schools for emergency access and turnaround.
Thank you. Stuart?
I don't think there's somebody else going.
I think he's just opening the window.
Just
So-
opening a window.
So
back.
question, have you been up there to look at the site with this proposed change in the driveway to lot
because-
1 and 2? Or
Because
3 and 2 and 3?
when it was discussed with me, the proposal was to move the turnaround area down to River Road. That was the proposal. This wasn't a thing said at the time to make this the access road to lot 2 and 3. This was a proposal to move the turnaround area down there. And on that corner, it's unsafe. I don't wanna turn around on that corner with a fire truck. So that, this is a little bit new from what we had seen before. You know, I guess I guess it would have to be written in, so does one person own all this property
Yeah.
right now?
Yes.
Same owner? Okay. So, he's trying to move it around so it works the best, and I can understand that. But, so,
Could we get you to go up and take a look at it as fire chief?
what's that?
Can you go up and look at this site, and can you look at this proposed
Sure.
change to
I'd
the
be-
driveway
I'd
and
be
see
happy
if
to.
that changes your mind at all about the situation?
I could probably go look at it now, and you guys keep doing your other business. No, I'm serious, I mean, because
You
I
could.
know-
That time is up.
I would just like to say as a comment is I would err on safety, and I would want to hear your feedback on what would you propose is the safest, not just for the people who might live on these properties, but for the people who might have to go up there someday and help the people living on those
Well, I'll probably
properties.
actually go pick the fire chief up. He didn't feel good enough to come here tonight.
Okay,
But if you're gonna be here for a while, I may go pick him up and we'll go out and actually look at it.
okay.
Oh, they do.
Well, I think we're gonna tap the table this for tonight.
Yeah, I think we're gonna
And we'll pick
table
it up
this
in the
until we
next
get your
meeting.
input, and
Right.
as much as I appreciate and we appreciate your offer, you don't have to, jump on the dime.
Okay, but yeah, because this was different than the proposal we talked about one day here in the town office.
Okay,
It
we'll be
was
doing this again in
Totally
2 weeks.
Okay.
different.
And it sounds to me, Stuart, if I can, that it's very important that there's a really specific condition in the new subdivision, as we're amending it, that driveway, if we are gonna come off of the existing right-of-way, that is the only access for lot
Right.
2 and lot
That
3.
will be
There will be
clear
no,
permit.
Right.
there will be no changing later on.
Yeah, the town.
I mean, it's a small lot to begin with, so I don't even know where else you would come off of.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with you that I don't wanna be doing this again
No.
in
No,
a couple months.
Right,
no,
and, we do allow amendments to approved subdivisions.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm not trying to be hard about it, but it's just, if this was written into the original program, then, and I don't know if Marcel talked to us about that or not, I'm trying to think what I had for lunch yesterday. So, maybe he spoke to us about it at that point, but he was pretty good about trying to look into the future of what might be needed, and he was quite forward thinking about that.
I believe that initially this subdivision plan was because he was gonna give a piece to each of his children. And now that he's trying to sell the house,
Right.
that's obviously,
His kids are
one
out of
kid
that-
might take
His
it,
kids
but
are out of that mess.
right, so I think having the access, the driveway off of his driveway, if it was his kid, didn't seem like a big deal, and that's probably my assumption. I did speak to someone who was part of that conversation when they were doing the initial subdivision, that's why it wasn't a super big deal to have the driveway come off, and I can understand, right, like, if you're trying to sell the property, there's not much you can do here, but this to me is the safest option, as opposed to coming off of
I
like.
have to laugh
Yeah.
I drove up there and there were cars in the driveway, so I didn't drive all the way to his house. That driveway doesn't look that long. I mean, and I assume that the map is correct, but I'll tell you, it's a pretty short distance. Which I was looking, I said, holy moly, where'd they plan on doing this turnaround? Because there wasn't hardly any room once you got off from Wall Street. I mean, is there a name of this little leg that goes to the house?
It's just his
No, his
driveway.
driveway.
Okay.
Driveway.
Number 5.
So when I drove up, I said, oh, Jesus, I don't know where they would have put it, because there's not much space there, and it's
Right.
almost at their house, because here it shows that it's almost 300 feet, that's 100 yards, and it's not that far to that house, I don't think, but whatever. Yeah, okay, so, I mean, I'd be willing to go look at it and walk out there now that we have something to go by. We didn't have
Okay.
this plan to go by before.
thank you,
Okay.
we appreciate it.
Yeah, the only problem is when you get ready to redo this, the 20th to 25th, I'm gonna be in Alaska seeing my grandson.
Okay,
So I won't be here, and if it comes during that time, either Steve might be able to speak for it if he's up to it, or maybe I could call in.
and, in the past, the fire department has written a letter, so if you wanna do that too, or send an email, we could take that into consideration.
Okay.
Okay, so Matt Batchelor from Wyndham Regional should be on the screen. Matt, are you there? There we go.
Everyone.
He's bigger than life.
Welcome. And you're here to talk to
Tim,
us
are you
about.
ready for me?
We're
to
ready, we're
Start
ready.
a presentation? Okay.
Are you ready for us?
Yes, let me just share my screen here. So I'm gonna send a request to share my screen.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. I'm hoping, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Everybody
Okay,
back
would it
there,
work
can you
better
get
if we
it?
took his lights off?
Yeah,
It-
probably,
It makes a
yeah.
pretty good glare.
There we go.
Does that help any?
Yes.
Dusty, can you hit that light switch?
Dusty, you wanna sit there?
For the fire extinguisher.
Dusty,
I have it here too.
Thank
you
you.
wanna sit here, Dusty?
You wanna go? There's, yeah.
There's a couple of chairs there. Lake Church is in front.
I know.
Oh, hello.
Okay, well, I'll get started here.
Okay.
So yeah, thanks for having me this evening. As Tammy mentioned, my name is Matt Bachler. I am a senior planner at the Wyndham Regional Commission. We are in the process of updating our regional plan, the Wyndham Regional Plan, to comply with new requirements under Act 181 that was passed in 2024. So we're meeting with each town in our region just to go over the changes that we're making to our regional plan, and it's also an opportunity to provide some general information about Act 181 to our communities. I just wanted to mention at the beginning of my presentation, I know there's been a lot of news recently about Act 181, and I just wanted to clarify that there's not a connection between our regional plan and the new Tier 3 and road rule jurisdiction requirements under Act 250. So I'll talk about some of those changes in my presentation, and I can do my best to answer those, but both the Tier 3 and road rule, the rulemaking process for those items are, that's being done by the State Land Use Review Board. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So for those of you that are not familiar with the Wyndham Regional Commission, we are one of 11 regional planning commissions in the state of Vermont. We serve 27 towns in southeast Vermont, including in Wyndham, Bennington, and Windsor counties. So our role is to assist towns in our region to provide effective local governance and to work collaboratively with our towns to address regional issues. So those are issues that span municipal boundaries, so things like water quality, transportation planning, those types of issues. We also provide technical resources for our towns in the areas of land use planning, grant applications and management, and assistance in meeting state and federal requirements. The regional planning commissions in the state of Vermont are required by statute to have a regional plan, and we're required to update that plan every 8 years. Our regional plan addresses the same topics that a municipal plan is also required to address. So we're covering the same topics that are in the Winhall town plan, but we are addressing those at the regional level. So we're looking at all those issues in your town plan, like transportation, natural resources, land use, region-wide, so not just at the local level. Our plan provides policy guidance for the region when it comes to growth, development, and protection of natural resources. And it's a basis for WRC actions and also our work program priorities. And then it serves as a policy basis if WRC is participating in an Act 250 or Section 248 project application process. If that's a project that's regionally significant, so for larger scale projects, we will look at our regional plan policies to see how they support or may not support a proposed project. It's important to note our regional plan is only advisory, so we have no permitting or regulatory authority. So for a municipality, your town plan is the basis for your local land use regulations if a town chooses to adopt those. But the Wyndham region has no authority to create land use regulations. We don't own any infrastructure or assets like a town does, so our plan is really just an advisory document. So turning to Act 181, probably many have heard about Act 181. This legislation was passed by the Vermont legislature in 2024, and it makes major changes to Vermont's planning and regulatory requirements. In terms of our regional plan and requirements for us as a regional planning commission, it created regional land use categories in statute that each regional planning commission has to map consistently across the whole state. So previous to Act 181, each regional planning commission developed their own future land use categories and map those out for their region. But with Act 181, all the RPCs are now using the same land use categories. So that's one of the main things that we are working on as a regional planning commission. Act 181 also reforms the state designation program. So in Winhall, the village of Bonneville is a designated village center under that state designation program, and that provides benefits for the town in terms of priorities for certain state grant applications. It also provides tax credits for property owners within that designated village center. But Act 181 made changes to that program to make it easier for towns to participate. So now it's the regional planning commissions working with towns to identify those village centers and map them out. And once our plan is approved by the Land Use Review Board, those village areas automatically are enrolled in that state program. So I know Winhall recently went through the process of getting the designated center for Bonneville, and that required an application process with the state. So these changes will make it much easier for towns to get those village centers going forward. And then finally, the third main component of Act 181 is the changes to Act 250 jurisdiction, creating a new tier system for Act 250, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. I did want to go over some questions that we frequently get when it comes to Act 181 and how it relates to our regional plan. So the regional future land use map that regional planning commissions are required to work on, it's not connected at all to Tier 3 or the road rule. So as I mentioned, the Land Use Review Board is responsible for mapping areas that will fall within Tier 3, and they are also responsible for the rulemaking process for Tier 3, so what will actually be required, what will be exempt, those types of things. That's all under the purview of the Land Use Review Board. Another thing to note, in our future land use map, there are areas shown as rural conservation, and these are not the same as Tier 3 areas. So what we show as rural conservation will not become Tier 3. It also doesn't mean that these areas must be conserved. A lot of what we map as rural conservation is already under conservation, either state or federal ownership or under private conservation easement. But there are some areas that fall under rural conservation that are adjacent or surrounded to conserved areas, have critical natural resources, where it's an area where development should be done very carefully. But again, our map has no regulatory authority to make those lands conserved. And then the regional future land use map, it's not regulatory and it does not impact Winhall's land use regulations. So it doesn't supersede your local zoning. It doesn't require that you make any changes to your zoning.
So why? Why are we drafting Act 181 future land use maps? If I understood what you just said, if you go back to that previous slide, they do not impact municipal land use maps or regulations.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Can you? Sorry, Tammy. Could you repeat the question?
So I'm just curious why. I mean, I'm looking at this map that you prepared for Winhall. That's
Yeah.
considered the Act 181 future land use map. But then you're also saying that this map is not regulatory. If I'm talking about the same map, and does not impact municipal land use regulations. So why
Yeah.
why are we doing this?
Yeah. So we're required by statute to do the regional future land use map, and I'll talk about in a little bit. Just even though it's not regulatory, there are some other implications with the map, just in terms of Act 250 and the state designation program.
So is it possible to opt out of this process as a municipality?
It's
And what would that mean?
Yeah, so it's not possible to opt out because it is a requirement under statute that we do the regional land use mapping. But I think as I go through, I think I might be able to answer the question that you have, Tammy, about kind of why are we doing this if it's not regulatory.
binding. It's not binding. Okay.
Thank you.
So just in terms of, and I know for the Winhall Planning Commission, I know we've had some previous conversations about this and received some input on the draft map. But just to go over what those new regional future land use areas in statute are, and I'll describe these in a minute here. So statute now includes these land use categories that need to be mapped out statewide. So that's downtown and village centers, planned growth areas, village areas, transition and infill areas, resource-based recreation areas, enterprise, hamlets, and then there are 3 subcategories of rural land use areas. So that's rural general, rural agricultural and forestry, and rural conservation. And this slide is showing the draft map for Winhall, which there have been a couple iterations of this map. So I'll just walk you through what's shown here, and then I will talk in a little more detail about the different land use categories that are mapped out. So first, looking in the village of Bonneville area along Route 30, so kind of the core of the village is mapped as village center. That's the darker pink color. Surrounding that is what's known as a village area. So these are primarily residential, some commercial areas that extend off of the kind of the historic core of the village center. So those are areas immediately around Bonneville, but that also extends to the west along Route 30 out to Kendall Farm Road. So it would include the town office and go out to roughly where the library is on Kendall Farm Road. In terms of the rural areas, so rural general is shown in yellow. These are generally low to moderate density residential areas. A lot of these areas have already been developed, but areas that are kind of immediately adjacent to your village center, spanning out from there. Rural agriculture and forestry, these are larger blocks of forest land or agricultural land. A lot of these parcels are enrolled in the current use program. And then rural conservation is the darker green. So again, these are lands that, in Winhall, as you know, a lot of the land in Winhall is within Green Mountain National Forest. So that's all those lands are shown as rural conservation. But then it also includes like Gale Meadows Pond, which is state land, as well as land that's under private conservation easement, and also some properties that have critical natural resources and are adjacent to some of those already conserved lands. And then the final land use category is the resource-based recreation area. So that covers the Stratton Mountain Resort, which extends into the adjacent town of Stratton. That includes the base area, but also residential development that's associated with Stratton Mountain. It also includes the golf course as well as Stratton Mountain. So just to describe these a little more, and again, these are the categories from statute. So downtown and village centers, these are the state's mixed-use historic town centers. They include commercial, residential, and civic uses. This is really where you see the highest intensity of development. Planned growth in village areas. Planned growth areas are generally going to be a higher density compared to village area. Planned growth areas are required to have municipal water and wastewater. Village areas are not required to have that. So that's why for Winhall, without those municipal utilities in Bonneville, we can map those areas as a village area, but not a planned growth area. But these areas include housing, employment areas, again, kind of surrounding those core centers within a community. And a couple of these land use categories are not mapped out in Winhall. So, for example, enterprise areas, these are locations of high economic activity and employment. These are primarily in our region, these are industrial parks, so we have a few of these in Brattleboro and Bellows Falls, for example. Resource-based recreation areas, again, those are large-scale recreational facilities in our region, often concentrated around ski resorts. They include infrastructure jobs and housing that are supportive of those recreational activities. Transition and infill areas, these are existing or planned commercial office mixed-use development that are outside of a downtown or village center. These areas under statute are required to have water or wastewater infrastructure or plans to extend services to those areas. And then the three rural categories, which I described looking at the map, but just to reiterate, for rural general, these are low-density residential areas. They include commercial development as well that's compatible with those residential neighborhoods. They also include productive farmland and can include natural areas as well. Rural agricultural and forestry. Again, these are larger blocks of forest and farmland, so looking at kind of contiguous areas where these industries are found, but they also include low density residential uses as well. And then rural conservation are lands with ecological value, and they require special protection due to uniqueness, fragility, or ecological importance. But development in these areas should have a minimal impact on those natural resources. Again, rural conservation is not the same as the Tier 3 designation, which is being developed by the Land Use Review Board. And just to kind of provide a comparison too between our current regional plan, future land use map. So we've had a regional future land use map for decades, and our last plan was done in July of 2025. So the image on the right is showing the future land use plan from our current regional plan as of 2025 for Winhall. The land use categories have changed just because of the changes in Act 181 to statute. But generally, there's a lot of similarity between what we have in our current plan for land use areas and what was required under Act 181. And the policies in our plan, so policies as we describe these different land use areas are pretty much the same from our 2025 plan.
Matt, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. So I know you keep saying it's this future land use map is not regulatory, but I'm imagining that this, because I know this future land use map is going to go to the land use review board and they're going to approve it, and they're in the process of doing their tier 3 mapping. So it sounds to me like they're going to get this future land use map, they're going to look at everything on here that's been designated as rural conservation, and they're going to use that as a starting point to then designate their tier 3. I don't imagine them looking at that and saying, you know what, no, it's rural conservation here, but actually we're going to take that away and we're not going to make that tier 3. I feel like they're going to look at that and say, okay, that's where we're going to start, and now what else are we going to designate as tier 3? So that's kind of one question, is like, it's not necessarily regulatory in like as it is, but it's feeding the team that's going to be making these regulatory decisions. Another thing kind of along the same vein is, you know, if an area falls within a specific zone, it's triggering those regulations. For example, if something is underneath the village area or village center, even though a town might not have a village center designation, in this future land use map, if it's labeled as village center, it's now being designated by the state as a village center. Does that make sense? My question, kind of like, you say it's not regulatory, but to me it seems incredibly regulatory.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that makes sense. So just to respond to the first question, so in Act 181, there's specific criteria that the Land Use Review Board was supposed to consider in developing the Tier 3 areas. So, and those criteria were like natural resource criteria, so things like steep slopes and wetlands and habitat corridors. So the legislature gave the Land Use Review Board direction of look at these different areas as you develop areas that should fall within Tier 3. So the Land Use Review Board they're still in the drafting process for what will fall under Tier 3, and they've had a couple of versions of that Tier 3 mapping that have considered different criteria and what should be included in that. And there's no connection in statute between what we are mapping as rural conservation and the Tier 3 mapping process. So there's nothing in statute that directs the Land Use Review Board to consider what we have mapped as rural conservation. I would say too, just from my own perspective, you know, if there was a change, if there was a change in terms of the connection between rural conservation and Tier 3, regional planning commissions can always change their plans. So right now there's zero connection between our map and Tier 3. If in the future there was a connection between our map and Tier 3, we, as a regional planning commission, could change how we're mapping. So right now, we're mapping just based on those statute requirements, and there is no connection between our map and Tier 3. For the second question, you know, the regional future land use map is providing high-level policy guidance on the general direction of growth and development in the region. And that's required to be included in our plan under statute. But how we're showing different land use categories in the region, there's no regulatory connection in that there's not countywide zoning. We don't issue permits for development. So if a property owner in Winhall was proposing to build a house in the rural general district, we're not made aware of that at all. We're not a regulatory or permitting agency, so the mapping does have a connection to eligibility for the state designation program, and it has a connection to eligibility for the Tier 1 exemption from Act 250, which would exempt either fully or partially projects from Act 250. But there's not I understand that the regional future land use map looks very similar to a zoning map. So I can understand the connection between what's shown on a regional future land use map and a regulatory zoning map, but there's just no, in statute, we don't have any authority to regulate land use in that way.
Matt,
Does that
what would the
answer your question?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
What would the process be for Winhall to make changes to their version of the Act 181 future land map?
Yeah, so I welcome input from the town on the draft map, and I think, as you know, we've made changes to the map based on input from the town. We do need to still complete our map based on the requirements in statute. So, we're constrained by those statute requirements. So, but what we've been doing through this process is meeting with towns, getting input on changes to the map, and then making those changes unless there's something that's kind of against statute requirements. So, we're not able to map something that is going to result in the land use review board objecting the plan. What I will say too is that we're just in the draft phase of our plan, so we are going to be submitting what's called a pre-application with the land use review board by the end of May. And the land use review board then has 2 months to review our plan and provide comments. One of the areas they will look at is the future land use map, and do that review based on the statute requirements. So, it may be that we propose something and they may, because they are the body that's approving these plans, they may say, what you have mapped here doesn't meet the statute requirements and you need to make these changes. And that's once we get the comments back from the land use review board. If we are required by statute to make changes, we would, communicate that with towns. But, certainly, if there are changes that Winhall would like to make to the map, I would welcome that input.
Excuse me, do the individual towns have to submit to you so that their towns are also included in any adjustments? Take for instance Stratton. Has Stratton reached out to you to make adjustments with what you're going to propose?
Well, I know another staff member at our office, Alyssa Sabeto, has met with the Stratton Planning Commission, and I'm not sure if during that meeting there were changes proposed by the Stratton Planning Commission. Generally, in our outreach, we've been communicating and reaching out to select board and planning commission chairs to share a draft of the map. Most of our meetings with towns are with the planning commission, just because the planning commission has familiarity with land use issues within the community. But for things such as like the Tier 1A or Tier 1B exemption from Act 250, those are decisions that are made by the select board. but we've been completing the drafting town by town throughout our region and have been reaching out to each town over the last several months. And we've been holding these types of meetings just like what we're doing this evening with every town in the region. And we'll be completing those meetings within the next few weeks.
But, so let me just clarify this. So as a town, we really don't have the ability to give you final approval for this map. Is that correct?
So as the towns are not voting on whether to approve the map. So Wyndham Regional Commission is comprised of 2 commissioners from each of the towns in our region. So Winhall has 2 appointed commissioners that serve on the Wyndham Regional Commission, and the regional plan needs to be adopted by that full commission, the Wyndham Regional Commission, before we send the plan to the Land Use Review Board for approval. So it's not the towns that are approving the maps, but it's their representatives that are on the Wyndham Regional Commission.
And Matt, to clarify, you said we can't ask for things to be changed on our map that you think that the board won't approve. Is that correct? For example.
Yeah, and generally I'm willing to make most changes. But I just wanted to be clear if there was something that was clearly not consistent with statute, I would let you know. But generally, any change you want to make, I'm happy to make. But there are, just for example, not that this would be proposed, but if you were proposing a new village center in the middle of Green Mountain National Forest, I would say we can't do that just based on the statute requirements. But generally, there's a lot of flexibility to make changes to the map based on local input. So
But we asked you if we could have more area for our village, because right now our village is restricted by steep topography and a river. We were looking at exploring options along Route 30, and you told us flat out no. We didn't even get to pitch that idea.
Well, we did make changes to the village area to extend that further down Route 30 to Kendall Farm Road.
I thought we needed
And
to
so
change
we're happy to-
one area that wasn't included in the initial, like Magoon's house.
But
So
we're
if
happy to,
If we wanted to expand the village area, not the village center, out, we could request that and that would be done?
yeah. Let me
What's
go
the
back to
criteria
this.
for village area? Does that have to be within a certain radius of your village center? Are there restrictions like that?
It's, in statute, it talks about the village area being generally within walking distance of the village center. But there's not like a clear quarter mile or half mile radius or
Okay.
anything like that. So I think if we can look at expanding the village area further.
Well, I think it's hard for us to think about what we want to change or expand when we really don't know the implications of Act 181 on Winhall. So, you're asking us to make decisions on mapping when we don't know the full implications of Act 181 on the citizens and towns and property in Winhall. So that just seems unfair to me, maybe backwards.
And you did not make this clear to us about that this map would translate to Tier 1 and Tier 2 designations. You've said now that this map that we've been working on, that you came in this winter to work with us on, that translates to Tier 1A and Tier 1B, correct?
So let me, if I can, I'm gonna just skip ahead to some
So hold on,
slides a
Stuart
little
had it.
further along.
Hold on, Matt,
Just-
Stuart had a question, sorry.
Oh, sure.
So Matt's not the bad guy.
No, you're not Matt.
We're not holding this against you. But I'm wondering, what is the state really trying to do? Are they trying to conserve more land? Because right now, 60% of the land in the town of Winhall is conserved, and that's not including the individual homes. That's just, Green Mountain National Forest has 54.4% of the town of Winhall. And when you count up the state land and the town land and cemeteries, we're at 60% is conserved right now. Are they trying to make that number bigger so that we don't do anything more? Or I mean, I've tried to read it, but I fall asleep before I get through it all because it's kind of
Isn't
boring.
it rule 50?
But I'm just wondering what they're really trying to do with this. I mean, why, is this just thinking that they're gonna solve all the housing problems in the state? Or what?
Yeah, so I would say, I think, one of the primary goals of Act 181, and again, Wyndham Regional, we're not involved in the actual legislative making process, so we're responsible for implementing what's in statute. But I think the goal was to make it easier to develop, in particular, develop housing in areas of the state where there is adequate water and wastewater infrastructure, and where there is local land use regulations that support that more compact and higher density development. And to make that happen, that's like the tier system under Act 250, in creating Tier 1 with full exemption under Tier 1A, or partial exemptions for housing under Tier 1B. That is kind of the mechanism under Act 181 to make it, or to create an incentive for development to happen in those areas, because it's a reduction in the permitting requirements for a developer, property owner, and it's also reduces uncertainty for a developer or property owner to know that they don't need to get a state Act 250 permit. They just need to get local approval from the municipality. The kind of flip side of that, with the Tier 3 areas in the road rule, was trying to, my understanding is to increase Act 250 jurisdiction in areas with important natural resources. So those are Tier 3 areas, and then the road rule applies for new development that includes a new road that's 800 feet or in length or longer, or a combination of a new road and new driveways of 2,000 feet or longer. Trying to conserve or have additional permitting requirements in some parts of the state, and then easing permitting requirements in other areas.
So Matt, am I correct in that Tier 1A and Tier 1B, those require municipal water and sewer systems for development?
Well, so Tier 1, and I'm gonna just flip ahead a little here, so I apologize, but I wanted to get to the slide about the different tiers, and then I'll respond to your question, Tammy, about the requirements for the different tiers. So just to clarify, so that the regional planning commissions, we are, through our future land use mapping, we are mapping areas that will be eligible for Tier 1A or Tier 1B. So that includes the village and downtown centers, planned growth areas, and village areas. So Tier 1B, that provides an exemption for any housing project up to 50 units. So it could be a 10 unit, it could be a 20 unit housing project that would be exempt. if it's in a Tier 1B area, Tier 1A provides full exemption from Act 250, so for any development within those areas. And then the Land Use Review Board is responsible for both Tier 2 and Tier 3. Tier 2 is kind of everywhere else. It's not, that's not within Tier 1 or Tier 3. So generally everything in Tier 2 is going to follow the status quo of Act 250 permitting requirements, but those areas will be subject to the road rule as well, and that's in the rulemaking process. And then Tier 3 are those critical natural resource areas, and again, the Land Use Review Board is responsible for mapping and rulemaking for those areas. So our map is only connected to Tier 1 areas. So for Winhall, Winhall is eligible for Tier 1B exemption. So on the top portion of the screen, these are the requirements for Tier 1B exemption. So Winhall has a town plan and RPC confirmation. The village center and village area that we've mapped, those areas would qualify for Tier 1B. You have flood hazard and river corridor bylaws. You have zoning and subdivision bylaws. And although you don't have municipal water or wastewater, you do have adequate soils mapped by the state for on-site septic systems. So the final piece of this is the town just needs to confirm they have adequate staff to coordinate the local development review, and that's just a town determination. So for Tier 1B, it's a decision for the select board if they want to opt in to Tier 1B. And if that's something that Winhall wants to do, that's something that we, Wyndham Regional Commission, we submit that request along with our regional plan, and that goes into effect once the plan is approved by the Land Use Review Board. For Tier 1A, which is on the bottom half of the screen, there are many more requirements to be eligible for Tier 1A. The big one for Winhall, which makes the town not qualify currently, is you need to have public water and wastewater to be eligible for Tier 1A. All the areas shown in blue here for Tier 1A, these are all review criteria that the Land Use Review Board has to complete, so it's not, and it's a separate application process for Tier 1A, and it's just between the town and the Land Use Review Board. So for Tier 1A, we're only involved in mapping out those downtown village centers or planned growth areas that are eligible for Tier 1A.
I think we have a question. Matt?
Hey Matt, it's Paul Carocchio. Thanks for responding to my email. I have two questions. One, if the town chooses to designate a Tier 1B area and the town Planning Commission and Design Review Board denies a housing project by, for example, a housing authority that might be like a low-income tax credit housing project in that area, they deny it, couldn't the developer appeal it to the LURB and it would be in their best interest to approve it because it follows the Tier 1B criteria? So the town would be stripped of its ability to, I guess, regulate a significant impact on their municipality. For example, additional kids in the school system requiring extra school buses, impact on roads, police force, things that some of these rural towns may not be able to overnight do. And I'm just thinking the Cornerstone developers, the Evernorths, are always out hunting down Tier 1B properties in the state to develop, and they have all the money in the world to do it. Wouldn't that take all the control away from the town? That's one question. The second question is, What's the definition of historic village? Is there a time frame on that? Is it 30 years, 50 years, 100 years? And if you have that definition, I think it's important because Stratton Village in Winhall and Stratton Town has been around for 70 years. And I think towns have come and gone in 70 years. So it could theoretically be considered a historic village, which would qualify for Tier 1A.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So I think just in response to the first question, so I would say it's entirely up to the town whether they want to request Tier 1B exemption. So it's not a requirement, and we're here to support the town in making that decision. But I want the town to be aware that you could request Tier 1B, but you're not required to. So, and I know of towns in the state that are eligible for Tier 1B and are not opting in. If you don't opt into Tier 1B, then projects would still, they would fall within Tier 2 and would still require an Act 250 permit if it's a large enough scale project. Even if the town does opt into Tier 1B, then any housing project would have to go through the local review and approval process. And I think with any development project that gets denied, there's the opportunity for a developer to appeal that local decision to the state courts. But I can't speak to whether Act 181 makes any changes to that kind of that legal appeal process. I'm not familiar with any changes to that process.
I think the law says that it goes to the LURB now.
Okay. Yeah. Just for the second question, there's not a definition in terms of for a historic village how long a village needs to be in place for. And I understand the points raised about Stratton Mountain, given the high concentration of housing and commercial development at the base of Stratton. My understanding is that there is the resource-based recreation area land use category that is, from my reading, is pretty clear that it's for that type of ski resort, and looking at other parts of the state that have a similar concentration of development at the base of a ski resort, like Killington and Stowe. Those areas have also been mapped as a resource-based recreation area. So I think one of the components of a village center is some more kind of civic functions versus ski resort based, which is more kind of commercial oriented. But I do understand the point raised about those areas, ski resort areas, having that infrastructure that could support more development.
Christy, do you have a question?
It was answered,
Okay.
thank you, Tammy.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I do. Matt, a couple years back, and Stuart, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we walked the village center to try to change the designation, and there were a couple of things, the historic piece, but also the reason we couldn't extend all the way out here to, for instance, where the library is because there was no corridor for people to actually be able to walk there. Like the sidewalks in town actually help define part of the historic, where you can go with your town designation, and you said it really has to stop here because on that part of 30, there's no way for people to actually walk down towards where the library is, towards Kendall Farm Hill. Was that correct? Am I right on that?
That is correct. I think just to go back to the map, so that's still correct. I think with the changes in Act 181, the state is still wanting to see, pretty kind of small, compact village centers, but the village area allows for that kind of expanded village beyond the center, and so, that's why we're showing. I think it makes more sense to show that area to the west of Bonneville as village area versus village center, just because it's not in that compact historic core of Bonneville, but creating that village area out to Kendall Farm Road does provide additional benefits in terms of those property tax credits that are also available in the village center, and also helps, I would think it would help the town, for example, in looking at extending wastewater improvements into Bonneville, but also, potentially out to the town office, having all that area within a village area just improves the town's chances for being eligible for some of those grant opportunities.
Matt, one more thing. And I know we've talked about this a lot, but I just am trying to wrap my head around, it feels ironic to me, because our village center, we've discussed, is pretty much undevelopable. It is not a viable place for future housing in our community at all, because it's right on the river, so you've got, flood zones, a lot of that land that, the houses that are there, those are the houses that are there, and you're not gonna be able to put much more housing and infrastructure in that area. And I know that other towns in Vermont, rural towns especially, have the exact same problem, where the criteria for a village center or village area is so specific that you're locked into a very small place, but you really can't, if the intention is to solve for housing, for example, that's not going to be where our housing goes. And so therefore, anyone who's trying to create additional housing opportunities is going to trigger Act 250 moving forward, which has the exact opposite effect of what supposedly Act 181, one of the things they're trying to solve for is. And I'm just curious, are you getting this feedback from other towns too, who are we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and this whole big project is not going to solve any of our problems. In fact, it's going to make it incredibly more difficult for any housing to be built moving forward.
That's good. Good feedback. It is. I think as we all know, many of our village centers are in a similar position to Bonneville in terms of being pretty fully developed, having a lot of flood-prone areas, and having limited area to grow into around the village, so that it is a comment I've heard elsewhere. We are constrained by the statute requirements. I will say, there are examples in the state. There are examples of towns creating new village centers in areas that are, good areas for development, that are in less flood vulnerable areas. What I have heard from the Land Use Review Board and from other regional planning commissions that have gone through this process is the Land Use Review Board is willing to look at kind of a proposed new village center or a new growth area, but they want to see some local planning effort to back it up, to feel comfortable with the town having considered different criteria for identifying an area for additional growth that's outside of a historic center, just in terms of land use planning and planning for infrastructure needs. So I would encourage, and I do encourage the towns to continue with local planning efforts as well. I know for Winhall, there's the town-owned property at the end of Kendall Farm Road, and there have been conversations about potential housing development in that location. And so I think continuing with local planning efforts to still look at future growth areas and plan for those areas, and making updates to your zoning and town plan to support that. Also, I know I mentioned at the beginning that we're required to update our regional plan every 8 years. Once we get through this update process, it's not to say that we're not going to make changes to our future land use map for 8 years. I fully expect that we're going to be making changes to this land use map pretty regularly. And I know there's legislation right now that is trying to make it easier for regional planning commissions to amend their regional plans, and specifically amend their future land use maps to accommodate changes that are going to happen during that 8-year period. So, my goal is to make sure that we are working with our towns as they make changes to their town plans and local zoning that can support additional growth and development. We want to update this map too, so if Winhall was planning a new village center, we could amend our map to make our map show that area as a village center so that we're supporting that effort. So it's not, the map is not set in stone, and I think the idea is for it to be revisited on a more regular basis.
Lucia, you have a question?
Yes, to oversimplify, I am looking at the map, and what I see is the majority of our town in Tier 2. If it's in Tier 2, people who want to add a garage, build an addition, do something with their property or some of their land, they will all have to go through the Act 250 process. Now, a zoning admin giving a simple zoning permit in Tier 2 would be easy. However, if our legislators say if you're in Tier 2, you have to apply for an Act 250 permit. This goes easy out the window. It will cost more, it will take more time, and I understand Tier 3, I understand Tier 1B, I understand the road plan, the road rule, but nobody has said Winhall is mostly in Tier 2 and subject to Act 250.
So, Lucia, that's correct that the most of Winhall will be Tier 2. And Tier 2 is, let's go back to this slide. So tier 2 is, right, everywhere else that's not Tier 1 or Tier 3, and it's generally status quo under Act 250. So the way Act 250 currently works, or worked before Act 181, was whether or not you needed an Act 250 permit was based on just the size of the project, and whether or not a town had zoning and subdivision bylaws. And so for most of Winhall, there's not going to be a change in the Act 250 requirements for a property owner. So if you're in Tier 2 and have a single family home, and you want to put an addition on the home, that would not trigger Act 250. And so I think for a lot of Winhall, I don't think there's going to be much change for just kind of a property owner of a single family residential home. It's really just in those tier 3 areas, which again are still being mapped out. I'm happy there is draft mapping that the Land Use Review Board has done. So, I mean, if it would be helpful, I'm happy to pull up the tier 3 draft map just to see what is currently mapped in Winhall as tier 3.
Does anybody want to see that? And Alex,
Yeah.
Al has his question.
I'd like to see the tier 3 map.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna. You just give me 1 minute. I'll pull it up.
I have a follow-up to Lucia's question.
Go ahead.
I just also want to point out that the road rule would also come into play with the tier 2 properties, under my understanding, which could trigger Act 250 jurisdiction, which is not currently in effect. There's also a rule that's drafted about material changes to a property that could have environmental impact, which is kind of vague in my opinion. I don't really know all the details about it, but if you know anything about that, I'd appreciate any information you have about the material change aspect as well for tier 2.
Sure, yeah, so I did hear that question. So that is correct, just the first part of the comment related to the road rule. So the road rule does apply for all properties that are within tier 2, but the road rule only comes into effect if a project includes the construction of a new road that's at least 800 feet in length, or a new road and driveways that combined are 2,000 feet in length or more. So if it was a small subdivision that included a new road and some driveways coming off of that road, if that whole development was 2,000 feet or more, that would also fall under the road rule jurisdiction. So, but I think it's more if you have an existing home and an existing driveway and you're not constructing a new road, then and if you're just doing a minor addition to your home, then that would not require Act 250 permitting. But to the comment about the material change, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that specific language. What I would recommend for folks in attendance is the State Land Use Review Board. Their website has a lot of useful information, and they have contact information for the Land Use Review Board members on the website. So Alex Weinhagen, who's on the Land Use Review Board, is the board member that's working on the Tier 3 aspect of all of this, and his contact information is available on their website, and he's very accessible. So I would just recommend, if you have more specific questions related to the work of the Land Use Review Board, to contact him, just because he's much better able to respond to some of these questions related to Tier 3. So let me just pull up, let's see here. So this is showing, this is the Tier 3 mapping that's being done by the Land Use Review Board. So I'm happy to share it here, but again, I can't speak to their process just because that's separate from the work we're doing. So here's the town of Winhall, and so they are showing, let me see here. So under the current draft Tier 3 areas, they are looking at headwater stream areas, and I think those are I'm just turning that layer on and off. So these are kind of the light green areas here. So there's some here, kind of up around Stratton Mountain, and then there are some pockets of the headwater stream areas, kind of scattered throughout Winhall. And then another area they're looking at for tier 3 is these habitat connector areas. So that's what's being shown here in the northwest corner, the lighter and darker shade of yellow. Right now they're showing a habitat connector that's both 800 feet off the road and 2,000 feet. So that's why there's the different shade and colors. And then they also are mapping significant natural communities, which I'm not sure if any of those show up in Winhall. So the primary area right now that potentially would be impacted by tier 3 is here in the northwest corner of Winhall.
Is that Pinnacle? And down Manchester Mountain. Does everybody know where that is? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Beth.
So you're showing out at 11 and 30 basically by the Long Trail parking lot. Now you have a serious vast corridor for snowmobiling going through that area. Is that going to shut down the snowmobile trail, which is a main corridor for connecting all of Vermont to this area?
And unfortunately, I can't respond to that question. So that would be a question for the Land Use Review Board.
For Alex?
For Alex Weinhagen,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, yep,
Yeah.
I reached out to him today, thank you, Matt.
Okay, yep.
Sorry, go, Andrea? Andrea?
Question that could you turn on the conserved areas hatch, please? And I'm wondering if you could tell me what the dark red area is. I'm trying to click on it, but I can't see what that is. But turn on the conserved area hatch first. I think it's related to that.
Okay, let's see. Is it, let's see if it's this. And I apologize, sometimes it takes a minute to load because this map is for the entire state of Vermont. So when you click on any data layer, it's showing the entire state of Vermont. So let's see.
While you're waiting for that to load, could you just discuss what 800 feet habitat and 2,000 feet habitat means?
Yeah, so I'll do my best. So my understanding is, the Land Use Review Board is, I'll just turn these both off for now. The Land Use Review Board is trying to decide between extending the Tier 3 area either 800 feet from a road within an area that's identified as a habitat connector by the Agency of Natural Resources. So either extending it 800 feet or 2,000 feet. And my understanding is that's connected to the road rule, because the road rule gets triggered at 800 feet. So I think that's why, and that's why they made that distinction. Because
how do they determine a habitat area?
So that is mapped out by the Agency of Natural Resources. So they're using mapping that's done by A&R.
I answered my own question Matt, so you don't have to keep going with the hatch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay.
now we're curious.
What's that answer?
Well,
Elevations,
Oh, yeah.
elevations greater than 2,500 feet.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is already active.
Right.
And I, let's see. Yeah, are there any other questions just about the, and again, this is the most current version of the draft, which I think came out last fall, and I know the Land Use Review Board is, they're working now on updating these tier 3 areas, and I think that's gonna be done either in April or May. So there will be changes to this map, but this is publicly accessible. This is on the Land Use Review Board's website.
Are the changes going to be more significant or less significant?
At least we hosted a just a public informational meeting with Alex Weinhagen from the Land Use Review Board a few weeks ago, and that recording is available on our website. And at that meeting, Alex did say that they are looking to reduce the area that's within the areas that fall within tier 3. So I think the goal is to scale these current tier 3 areas back.
How can we be a little more proactive if our property is falling in tier 3 to
Yeah.
see if we can make some adjustments?
Yeah, so I'd recommend contacting Alex Weinhagen at the Land Use Review Board. I know he has talked to other property owners and looked at their specific properties and kind of explained to property owners just the implications of falling within a tier 3 area. At least the current drafts of the rules do make exemptions for certain types of development. So the current rules would allow for exemptions for a certain amount of addition on an existing home, and I know they are also working on updates to those rules. So that's also changing, but I think talking to Alex and just kind of understanding what the implications are and just sharing any concerns that you have. I think talking to the Land Use Review Board and then also talking to your local legislators too, because for the Land Use Review Board, they are having to implement what's in statute, and to make changes to that, it does require a change to the law, so that it would need to be a legislative action.
Michael, who's on the Zoom meeting, had a question. He raised his hand. I don't know if he's still there though.
I am, thank you. I wasn't expecting to speak tonight, and my camera's not working, so I apologize for that. Someone asked in regards to how those wildlife habitat corridors were established. Just as background, I'm the district manager of the Bennington County Conservation District. Winhall's in our jurisdiction. We were established back in 1946 to work with private landowners on conservation efforts, and I have a background as an agroecologist and landscape ecologist. So what I understand based on my discussions with the Land Use Review Board and from testimony given by the Agency of Natural Resources and the Land Use Review Board during the House and Senate sessions this year, is that those wildlife corridors were established by doing a desktop survey of road corridors with continuous forest cover. So there are many instances in the map, and you can see it if you look at it rather granularly, where the tier 3 areas will jump over properties that have expanses of lawn rather than forest cover. It depends on what part of the state you're looking at. And the theory behind the habitat corridors, given that the Agency of Natural Resources doesn't have any real data on how wildlife, rather megafaunal wildlife move in the state, they know how bird migrations go and such, but they don't know exactly how bear, deer, and the other primary species that wander around in our backyards every day, where they move and where they winter down. So what they did was assume that the roads could act as corridors with sufficient forest buffer off of both sides to allow for habitat connectivity. But if you, as a conservationist, I have a lot of problems with that. For one, it's going to potentially increase wildlife conflict with car collisions. Also, when you look to design wildlife corridors, you tend to try and go with hydrologic connectivity, not human infrastructure connectivity. And then you utilize ridge lines to connect habitat to habitat. So the Green Mountain National Forest, which runs entirely up the spine of Bennington County, is a habitat corridor. Route 7, I don't see how that's a habitat corridor. I see a lot of roadkill on that road. And as far as the headwater streams, those are not actually, as you can actually see in this map, those blue areas. The areas directly geographically below in terms of contour elevation above the beginnings of those streams, those are the headwaters. What you're seeing in these maps is actually a combination of USDA soil data designating it as hydric soil, and then a elevation above, I believe it's 1,500 feet. It might be 2,000 feet. So they're not, strictly speaking, a wildlife biologist definitely didn't draw these maps, is what I'm getting at.
Who is Michael? He's the district.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Does anybody have any questions for Michael?
Is current use an automatic designator for forest conservation in your map?
Oh, let me go back to that map. I'm gonna pull up another map just for us to look at too. But to answer your question, it is not. So let's see.
Stuart, you have a question?
Sometime could we look at one of the wetlands maps to see what is designated as wetlands in our community? I know not this one, you're working on another map right now, but if you scroll by that.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Sorry, I did hear your question too, Stuart. I'm just, okay. So I just wanted to share this map. So this map is showing a comparison between what's currently conserved land in Winhall. So that all the properties with hatched lines are currently conserved parcels of land. And then the areas that we are showing as rural conservation on our future land use map, those are the green underlying areas. So in general, there's overlap between conserved parcels of land and what we're showing as rural conservation. These green parcels where you don't see the hatch lines, so these are parcels that are not currently conserved, so are not in state or federal ownership for conservation purposes, or don't have a private conservation easement on them. But they are identified as rural conservation in the regional plan, given ecological resources on those properties. Often these are also in proximity to other conserved lands, so there are a couple parcels on the northern end of town along the border of Peru that are pretty much surrounded by Green Mountain National Forest land and are not currently developed. So those were also grouped into rural conservation. But there are some examples too of, so there are a couple properties on Kendall Farm Road that are conserved lands but are not mapped as rural conservation, because we are needing to map for the regional plan. We're mapping at a very high level, region wide. So we're trying to map in larger blocks of areas. So we're not doing kind of scattered mapping across the region. So not all conservation lands would fall in rural conservation. But there are some private properties that get included within those rural conservation areas. Just to respond to the question about the connection between current use and the rural conservation classification, many of the current use properties fall within the rural agriculture and forestry land use category, because for the current use program, that requires a forest management plan, or for the property to be in active agricultural use and to be a large enough size to really support those activities on the property. So there are some properties that are in current use that fall in rural conservation, but a lot of those fall into rural ag and forestry. So this is also just showing the land use map again for Winhall. So rural ag and forestry is that lighter shade of green compared to the darker rural conservation land use area.
So Matt, I have another question. If I don't agree with current use being considered conservation, there are big differences, but I'm not going to argue that with you. If a property owns a parcel that's in current use but in the rural zone or residential zone in Winhall, if it's removed from current use, would it fall out of your mapping of conservation? Because it is in a residential. I'll back up my question with, I think people put land in current use to save taxes. They're not necessarily not developing them. It's just they don't know what they want to do with them yet. And I don't think those fall into conservation parcels, which might be donated to conservation where they've sold off their development rights. And so to utilize current use as a bucket for painting a picture of this map over this town, I think particularly your turquoise parcels that are in current use and now designated as forest, whatever, conservation, is a bit of a stretch, and I would consider that a taking.
Yeah, so a couple things. So I agree that current use is not the same as conservation, because it's not not permanently conserved, and property can be taken out of current use at any time to be developed. And so I did misspoke in saying some of the current use properties are in conservation. I would say, I don't have the data on what is in current use. So just going back to this map, so this is showing again the only properties that we show as rural conservation that are not already conserved are these green properties that don't have the hatched layer on them. And I don't know if any of those properties also happen to be in current use. But if a residential, so if a, just going back to the other map, if there's a property in rural general that is in current use, and then comes out of the current use program, you know, we're not gonna change our map based on that. You know, we, as I said earlier, we'll be working with towns to make changes to our map during that 8-year cycle that our plan is in effect to help support, you know, village center designations, expanding village areas, making other changes, but we're not going to do a complete update of our map until that 8-year planning cycle comes up, and so then we would look at if properties come out of current use, if those would be need to be changed in terms of the land use category. And just to note too, so our plan again is not it's not regulatory, so anything that we're showing as rural conservation that is not conserved doesn't have any impact on the use of that property, so that's still controlled by the town's zoning regulations and what they would require in terms of being able to subdivide the land or the types of development that you could do on the land. So our plan doesn't impact how properties can be used.
Any other questions for Matt?
Have you got a, Matt, this is Stuart again, have you by chance got one for that shows what wetlands? Or, and I know we could look this up, I'm sorry we're putting you through all this, you've been gracious enough to talk to us tonight.
No, I'm happy to do it,
Well, I know.
and if people have follow-up questions too, I'm always happy to answer those. Let me
I know, but he doesn't have to.
let me take a quick look here. Stuart, I do know where we could find a map that shows wetland, but
Yeah.
it might take a few minutes.
It's okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay.
No, that's okay. It's just, it's not a layer on that, on the tier 3 map that I just pulled up.
It would be nice if they would let us stack all of these layers up to see how much impact there was, but it doesn't appear that they let you do that. I mean, I know that your sideboard you had there for a while, you were able to put some filters on it, but it would be nice if you could take some of the maps that they have and move over and say, okay, here's what it really does, because you can't superimpose them. But there's probably a reason for that. They probably don't want you to do that.
I agree, that would be helpful if we had all the data in one place.
So Michael says it's pretty easy to do,
Yeah.
or it should be pretty easy
Well,
to do.
yeah.
The data layers, at least in A&R Atlas, are exportable. And I don't know for the tier 3 maps and the Vermont Conservation Design map, which is being used to make the tier 3 map. But it should be. Somebody's got the data set somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Matt, or can we let him off the hook?
Let them off the hook.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me. And just to say too, especially I know we talked about village center and village area, and whether we can expand those. So I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation with the planning commission, or just a smaller group of the planning commission to make some changes to that map. So
I think we'd have
something
to
we
talk
can
about
follow
that at
up
our
next.
next meeting.
Yeah.
No, we can off the,
Thank you, Matt. We'll be in touch. I think we need to do some
Okay.
conversing on our end as well. But really appreciate you
Thank you, Matt.
sitting through and answering our questions.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. You want me to leave you guys on, or you want me to shut it down? Michael and Matt.
No, let them go.
Yeah, write it down.
End it?
I'm gonna sign off. I don't
Okay.
can't.
Michael,
Yeah.
you have a preference?
I was gonna listen in on the
Okay.
public comment section.
That's perfectly fine. Can we turn the lights back on?
I got it. All right, close your eyes.
Yeah.
Wake up. Everybody wake now.
Public comments.
I find it shocking that the two commissions, both developing these maps, are not speaking. They're both impactful, and yet they're not. The state is gonna be operating under two separate maps that are both causing incredible controversy. I find this shocking.
I don't have an answer for that.
I
agree with you.
I'm just saying, as a layman, I'm shocked to hear this.
You should know better.
Sorry, Al.
And I guess what I wanted to say earlier was, I wanted to echo the frustrations of the whole village area, village center thing, and thinking about, bringing up the Kendall Farm. We've talked about the Kendall Farm before. I mean, it's a capped landfill, and emergency services, if they have to get down there in an actual disaster, can't get down there. If we have a flood, there's chances that that road is coming out. So I don't think making that the village, and it's a dead-end road, so the village center isn't gonna work down there. There's really, ideally, the Red Fox Airport would have been a great place to move into, but that's all privately owned now.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
I just want to point out that the Killington access road is actually designated as a village center. So I think that there should be discussions with the town of Stratton. Hopefully you guys can talk with the town of Stratton and maybe see if we can add some.
You mean
village
Stratton
center.
Court?
Stratton Court or I'm not
Stratton.
sure. I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, and technically, the bulk of what we could consider Tier 1 is in the town of Winhall, but the village technically is in the town of Stratton.
Right.
Does that, what does that mean?
I think you can combine the two. The question is it
Strat Hall?
historic?
Right.
It's 70 years old, and it's 60, 65.
I was here for all that.
It has sewer, water, post office, fire department, multi-denominational chapel. It has more
Grocery
than
store?
grocery
And
store,
it's sewer
Restaurant
water.
has
expensive
that.
grocery store, sewer and water. It has public transportation, it has paved roads, it has recreational facilities for the public. It has more than the 220 towns do in the lot.
At a minimum, the corridor that has the sewer line should be considered a village or a village
Like the
center.
fire district.
I'd be curious as to what other towns have second village centers. I almost asked you.
Wyndham has two. Imagine
Wyndham.
that.
Wyndham?
Yeah.
Two
Because
designated village centers?
this guy designated those two, a south and a north village.
Okay.
Can you not have it designated the recreational one that Stratton currently is, and then village? Do you think that was an intentional thing?
I think they're all shallow promises. Because yesterday at the legislative session, they said, we have 9,000 acres now in the state as Tier 1B. And they're including your villages, and they're including the other 200 towns. But the reality is there's only 500 acres in the state that qualify. They're just making it sound like we just made 9,000 acres as express lane for housing. But you're not gonna develop 100 units in the village.
No.
Unless you know what feet.
Yeah. It's shallow political promises. By the way, at yesterday's legislative session, I sent you that table. It's a direct correlation between the map colors and what tier they fall in. They showed it to us yesterday. But he doesn't know that, because he wasn't there. It's happening so fast.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. I have noticed a pervasive lack of definitions in all of this. And in fact, there's an article on the Vermont Act 181 website that somebody just posted, where the drafts person, I think it's Sheldon, of this, specifically acknowledged that she wanted the definitions pulled out of the statute and left to the land use review board. It's scary. So, point is, keep asking people when you're asking, what is the definition of that? What does that mean? What is a headwater? What is critical environment? That's it. Just ask questions.
So Tammy, we had talked briefly at the March 17th meeting about having a meeting and having Alex, who was at that meeting, come down. I did reach out to him today. I think we should have a focused Act 181 meeting with Alex from LURB, come down, have it at the school where we have plenty of room, invite all the community that wants to come.
And the surrounding community.
Yeah, absolutely. And Janet Hurley, who's the chairman, actually resides in our town. I'm a little disappointed that we had not heard from her directly since she lives in our town. She did reach out to me today after I had reached out to Alex. So I'd like to move ahead with organizing that meeting, if everybody's good with that.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I will do that. I'll keep you all informed. I think we need to work together as a team, all these communities, and we need to stay focused on our goal, because this impacts all of us forever. And it's really scary and expensive.
Jeff?
I'm gonna sort of echo what Elizabeth was saying, because this all sounds very, I'm going back to almost where Matt started. It's all squishy.
Yeah.
You know, they want us to put something down that's not binding, but by putting something down for them to vote on, it becomes binding.
Right.
And then we go back and say, yeah, but you told us, and I can just see legislature turning that sort of against us, and so doing a combined effort, and I think having a large format is important, because the word squishy means, like, I don't get, I mean, like, I understood what Matt said. It took a long time to get there, but it's not clear. It's not like you're hearing anything that's black and white. The amount of gray really is bothersome.
I think the other piece of the puzzle that everybody should recognize is that this legislative move was drafted by Seth Bongartz, who's our state senator from Bennington County, in 2023, and got approved under a supermajority House legislative session and Senate, and the governor was opposed to it. He said, it's the worst bill I've ever seen. But he had no veto power.
Right.
So it got approved under a supermajority, and we all heard about the politics, right? But this was the bill that got through. And now we're living it in a non-supermajority session. And everybody's sort of freaking out, saying, what happened? Well, it all got rammed through on us.
Quietly.
Well, quietly, yep. And why isn't Seth Bongartz in this room? He's our state senator. Why isn't he explaining the bill he wrote? Why isn't Janet here? She lives in your town. She sends kids from your town to private schools in Manchester. I think that's why she lives in Winhall. But she should be here, and Seth should be here explaining himself, but you can't get anything out of them. That, to me, is an indicator of something's fishy. When you can't get a person to say what they did to us and get them to come out in public, I think that's a character flaw. And I've emailed, and I get emails back saying, Paul, you should just leave the community. And that's a weird response from your political, but they had political power 3 years ago. Lieutenant Governor Rogers says the only way to get rid of this bill or slow it down is to change the makeup of the House and Senate. And it's a very difficult thing to do, but that's where we're at. Because people are coming out of the woods saying, this doesn't make sense to us, it's squishy. What happened? We have a lot of people in this room that are smart and sophisticated, and you're here. We don't understand this. Why is it being put on us? So I think you have to look back what happened in the last 36 to 48 months, figure out how we got here, and then you have to unravel that. Because you're not going to change a guy like Matt. He's just a hired person to do his job, and he's basically a librarian. you know, doing keeping the books, you know, dust-free. And he doesn't want to be on these meetings with us.
Can you imagine how many
Right.
times he has to do this?
27.
Yeah.
Michael, you had a question? Hold on then, Teresa. Michael?
Well, just, I'm happy, I threw in the chat, we've been organizing a series of county-wide listening sessions at Conservation District, and Winhall is one of the locations of that. We just announced them earlier this week. I threw the link to it in the chat. If there is a local effort that is going to be ongoing, we'd be happy to support that effort. We have a lot of paid staff that our NRCF planning season wrapped up, so we have a lot of capacity. And if there's a local effort and a local meeting, we're happy to seed the ground and not host an independent session, but also very open to just helping organize whatever's going on, whatever the town decide they want to do.
Teresa, then Beth? Thank you, Michael.
So I just wanted to speak about his lack of concern that, well,
You mean
we're gonna change
Matt's?
the mapping for 8 years, yes. 8 years is a lifetime to some people in this community. 8 years. Can you imagine how many things could happen in 8 years, you know, that would be detrimental to this community, that wouldn't be able to be reversed? 8 years.
Beth?
So Michael, it's Beth Grant. We were texting a little bit back and forth. We never actually hooked up to chat. I know you have the meeting at the community center. For me, June 4th is way too far out. I'm thinking like next week, 10 days, 12 days at the max to have this meeting. June 4th is like right on the cusp of them passing everything. So for me, that meeting is way too far out, and if I hadn't caught that on Facebook in my own community, I wouldn't have even known it was happening, and I sit on the select board as well. So that was very disappointing to not be aware of that, or anybody telling us that that was even booked until just recently.
And you actually got to me about 12 hours after we decided to do it, so it was pretty quick.
Yep.
We're trying to build a plane while it's flying. Our logic behind putting it then was we're in the legislature a fair amount, and we are anticipating the delay bill that is currently moving through the House to end up passing. But like I said, if there's something happening organically, locally, we're happy to do that. We just tend to want to take at least a few months between saying we're going to plan the event and reaching out to the local officials and point people to help organize that effort. But we're a victim of the urgency as well. We would usually do that in advance.
Thank you, Michael. I certainly will keep you posted on what I find out.
Cheyenne?
So two things I'm hearing right now is that this is time sensitive, and Paul is talking about a need for change at the state level in terms of who's representing us. I do not know much about politics at all, but is it not soon? Isn't it in May when people need to be putting their names into the hat for things?
It's the 28th, I believe, or 26th or 28th of May, Jenna, that you have to have your signature. May 27th. 27th, thank you.
Right, so
Appreciate
spread that word and think on that, people who can make a difference.
There were 57 people in the House that went unopposed in that last election that voted for this bill. Just to give you an idea, a third of the House.
That's what happens when we don't get involved, and I'm guilty of it. And
We're all
now I'm
in.
sitting here appalled at what happened.
Julie?
I just wanted to suggest that there be a one sheet posted, like on our website or something, explaining it briefly, because trying to maneuver through the law and even anything that has tried to whittle it down is really cumbersome, and I think if we want people to come and get involved, just to explain the daily impact on their lives.
There's a lot of information on the Facebook Act 181, but with anything on Facebook, there's a lot of stuff you have to sort through. So I mean, I would be willing to sit down, maybe I could pick Paul's brain because he's so super smart and he knows so much. That,
Burning.
and come up with a fact sheet of like where we're at, what's gonna happen, the impacts, all of that stuff.
I think also if you're gonna do that, really what you can do, because that's the biggest part here is the
Yeah.
action, like, people can get angry, but they need somewhere to channel
Yeah.
that, so, like, we're talking about, you know, run for office if you can, or encourage people to, or write to the senators, like, let's encourage Seth Bongartz to come in front of us, right? Like, put it together, but actually focus on what people
Yeah,
can do.
and it's all wrapped around money. I mean, anybody that's gonna do anything very soon, it's gonna cost you a boatload of money before you even put a shovel in the ground. None of us have that money. We're all working class people in Vermont. Well, most of us, maybe not the ones making these decisions, but the people that are actually concerned are working class people that cannot afford that. We're already struggling with taxes. We cannot have any more financial problems with our land.
The LURB is a paid board. It's like 5 people that are making $150K each.
And then they
Decisions
have
on our land.
board under board under board of new people that they have authority to hire.
And the fees are outlined in the act. If you read the act, it tells you that the board has total authority for appeals. And then down below, they talk about how the fees are generated to pay for the board and all the admin process. So it's like this manufactured new system that we're all paying for, and highly restrictive to our lands.
Hey, Beth, if you get this meeting thing pulled together, maybe you should put on an invite to Seth and,
Oh, I plan to.
what's her face?
Yep.
Janet Hurley.
Janet Hurley, well, and I really want Alex to come, who we listened to. He was a wonderful speaker. He said he would come. When he reached out to me today, he thought it was better that Janet comes and she's in our community. That's great if she wants to come, but I actually want somebody who's outside of our community, especially since he deals with tier 3, that's his specialty. I want him here to tell us what the impacts are, and he said he would come here when we spoke on the 17th. But I think that the politicians that are representing us, they need to answer to the people.
Jeff?
I was just gonna ask you, Beth, when you do set that date, it would be great if it could be like a time like this, because if it's during the day, your
Yep.
population is gonna just dwindle.
I suggested evening, like 6 p.m. That way the school is closed.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Margaret will, I'm sure, will give me some dates that we can choose from. But I think all the surrounding towns, you know, Wadsboro, Jamaica, Londonderry, Andover, obviously Winhall, Stratton, Weston. I think as a group, we really need to have one focus and work together, especially down here, because Montpelier forgets that we even exist until they want our $15 million for education.
Beth, do you have contacts for all the select boards in the surrounding towns?
I sure do, as town clerk, I'm pretty thrifty at that.
Okay. So I think they should all get an invite.
Yes.
Planning commissions, all the surrounding towns, planning commissions and select boards.
Mhm.
And ask them to put it out to their community as well.
Stratton Corp too.
Stratton Court
Yep.
too, yep. Yes, sir.
Hi, if I may speak, I'm Brooke Page from up to the town of Washington, Vermont. And I'm
Thank you for coming.
Well, my wife has been asking me about 181 for weeks, and we've been trying to dig in. This is completely off the radar up my direction. And, I mean, this meeting that somehow I found posted was here. And I said, my God, this is the first time I've seen anything. So I applaud you folks for that.
We're on the map now.
But, you know, I just applaud all of you for being so involved and understanding the implications of this. Because as my wife, Donna over here, and I have been chatting back and forth about it, I said, this is big stuff. And nobody in our community even has attempted to understand what's going on. So I thank you very much. As to the thing about politics, Marty Seawright, who was involved in one of the parties in younger years, goes, you can't beat somebody with nobody. And so even if you have someone that's a neophyte or a little bit of an amateur who has passion about this, get them on the ballot. It's 50 signatures. Some of you may or may not know, I run for political office on occasion on a statewide basis. And I have to get 500 signatures to get on the ballot. So 50 is not real hard. And, you know, you take your best shot. And if you don't win the first time, it's okay. It's a learning experience. You go back and go at it again. Because we have got to stop all this chaos. All the trust fund children and the folks from elsewhere that have come here who didn't adopt our way of thinking, you know, the local way of thinking, are killing it for so many of us, especially the working class folks. Thank you for letting me speak.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for
Thanks
being
for
here.
being on the ballot. We do say your name a lot here in Winhall.
Is that the one who runs for everything?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're a history man.
Well, since you brought it up, I will point out that another reason I came down here is to get some signatures. But,
Fair enough.
But
You must be Brooke Page.
I am.
Okay, there we go.
And
Thank you, Ben.
as I pass this around, the one page is for one person to sign for the 4 offices. They have nobody to run for. If you think it's only in your local areas, they have 57 folks that didn't run for the House of Representatives.
Thank you.
Thank
But,
you.
but what I was going to say, the state of Vermont, we have statewide offices where they can't get anybody to run, and so you have Secretary of State, Attorney General, Auditor of Accounts, State Treasurer. If not for my little hard work here, they'd be unopposed. It'd be like we're having a coronation. So, and it's the same thing. I think most of the senatorial offices are always challenged. But as far as the state reps, you know, we really need to have a full slate. You know, we really do.
All 5? 4. Aside from my dad, too.
Can we make a motion to adjourn? Anything else?
Hey, everybody, can we get your attention? We just want to make sure, like, we want to adjourn, but we want to make sure that if there's any other comments you guys want to say, this is a public forum that we're in right now. If we're missing anybody before we shut down, Paul.
I think you should strongly consider not having a tier 1B section and have a tier 1A at Stratton Mountain Resort.
Do you think they're going to let us have a say in that?
I think you.
The 1B, maybe.
I think you are trailblazers. I think you're trailblazers on it, and I would look to the Killington scenario as to why they got it. Because Killington is the same age as Stratton, right? You're the historian.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Sorry, last comment from me. I just want to make a note that, or make a comment that the public roads portion, that is the addition to Act 250, that is currently up for public comment, and that public comment is open until April 30th. That's when it closes. So if you write into Google Act 250 road rule, you have to have your public comments in by April 30th, and then it's effective July 1st, 2026. So I agree with Beth that we got to get this meeting next week or the week after, and I'm more than happy to, I'm going to coordinate with her and help her plan it.
And I'll do whatever I can to help in the planning commission.
Do you know when you're gonna follow up with this situation on River Road?
Can we finish it tonight?
Well, I haven't, I was told I didn't need to go look at it
Right.
tonight.
Yeah, no, he's got to go look at
So-
it. We're putting it off till next meeting.
If you can let me know, I mean, I'll go look at it, but as I said, I'm gone for a few days,
But you can submit it. We're going to do it at our next meeting,
which
Which
is,
is,
2 weeks.
okay, I'll see what I can.
Can we approve it conditional on Stewart's approval, such that, oh, we don't even have a quorum? Okay.
Okay, I'll let you know, as soon as I.
Thank you.
motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Aye. Moved.